Welcome to the deep dive. So, have you ever tried to organize like a simple group dinner with, say, 8 of your friends via text message?
Oh, that is just pure chaos. It's the worst.
Right. It's so painful. Like you throw out a Thursday, but then someone can only do Friday.
And suddenly someone else is vegan or they move to the suburbs.
Exactly. And you finally lock in a time, but then, the restaurant doesn't take reservations for parties over 6.
So you literally have to start the whole manual reconciliation process all over again.
It takes 3 days just to plan a 2-hour meal.
Yeah.
And you're left staring at your screen wondering why it has to be this incredibly hard.
It's a uniquely frustrating modern experience, really, because, you have all the communication tools in the world right in your pocket.
Yeah, but you're still doing the work.
Precisely. You are still the one doing all the manual connecting and calculating. You're acting as the human integration layer between all these disparate schedules and preferences.
Well, our mission today is to take that exact frustration and scale it up to a multi-billion-dollar global corporate level.
That is a massive leap, but a very accurate one.
Yeah, we are looking at a huge invisible problem in the global economy today. And more importantly, exploring a really fascinating new technology built specifically to solve it.
We have a really great stack of sources to guide us on this, too.
We do. We're pulling from official announcements from a company called Auger, plus a deep architectural breakdown from the Microsoft Fabric blog. That one was actually co-authored by Arun Ulag and Dave Clark.
And we're also bringing in a really insightful industry analysis by Shish S that was published on LinkedIn.
Right, so the overarching theme across all these sources is a fundamental shift in how we handle enterprise operations.
Because up until this point in the digital age, humans have essentially just acted as that integration layer we were talking about.
Between, disconnected software systems, right?
Exactly. We read a screen, we interpret the data, and then we have to make a phone call or execute a command to actually make something happen in the physical world.
And in the supply chain world, Auger actually refers to this as the coordination tax.
The coordination tax. I love that term.
It's so good. It's this hidden cost we all pay for the physical goods we buy. It never shows up on a P&L statement, but it traps billions in working capital and just physical waste.
It really is the corporate equivalent of that group dinner text chain.
But instead of finding a table for 8, you're trying to reroute cargo ships, rebalance warehouse inventory, and manage supplier delays all at the exact same time.
And to understand the mechanism that's finally solving this, we first have to look at why supply chains are still so disjointed today.
Right, especially despite decades of intense software investments. Companies have spent fortunes.
They absolutely have. But the Microsoft Fabric blog highlights what they call the dashboard dilemma.
Oh, right. Let's get into that.
Because for years, the entire industry focus has been strictly on visibility, getting everything onto a unified real-time dashboard.
Which sounds great in theory.
It does, but dashboards are purely descriptive. They might tell you what is happening right this very second, but they are completely agnostic about what you should actually do next.
Yeah, like a dashboard might flash red and say, your supplier in Asia is delayed by 4 days.
Exactly. But it doesn't tell you if you should pull another order forward to compensate.
Or if you should just absorb the delay because you have enough local stock.
Or pay a huge premium to expedite shipping from a secondary facility. It just gives you the bad news.
So what about the planning systems, like the ERPs and the warehouse management system?
Well, the existing planning systems are actually incredible at generating highly sophisticated operational plans. They can map out an optimal supply chain scenario for the entire next quarter.
But they don't execute those plans across the wider network dynamically, do they?
No, they don't. And then you have these control towers designed to oversee everything.
But mostly they just act as really expensive alarm systems.
Pretty much. When an anomaly occurs, they hand that alarm over to a human operator.
Who's probably already stressed out.
Oh, entirely. And now that operator has to figure out the solution across 5 different software platforms.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because I know what you were probably thinking. Haven't companies spent absolute fortunes on supply chain software over the last decade?
Billions of dollars.
Right, and the whole rallying cry of the 2010s was unified data. So if a massive global retailer has a pristine data lake with all their info in one place, why does this coordination tax still exist?
The Shish S analysis on LinkedIn provides really great clarity on this exact question. He points out that data availability is no longer the constraint.
Okay, so what is?
The gap we are dealing with now is between insight and execution. Having a unified view of your operations gives you a very clear picture of a fire.
But it doesn't put the fire out.
Exactly. Translating that unified view into timely, coordinated action, that is the real bottleneck.
Because when human beings are required to do the coordinating, running the SQL queries, aligning stakeholders, holding emergency meetings.
You introduce massive latency into the physical supply chain.
And latency in a physical supply chain is toxic. Because while you're spending 4 days in cross-departmental meetings trying to figure out how to handle a delayed shipment.
The factory floor is physically running out of components.
Exactly. So how has the industry historically dealt with that?
Well, the historical response to that human speed latency is to build buffers.
Buffers, meaning like extra stuff just in case.
Right. If an operations director knows it takes their team 2 weeks to react to a major disruption, they mandate 2 extra weeks of inventory.
Just sitting in a warehouse.
Just sitting there. And that equates to massive excess inventory, an inflated commercial real estate footprint, and all this trapped working capital.
The enterprise is basically paying a premium just to pad the system against its own slow reaction times.
Exactly. So the solution isn't just another analytics overlay or giving the human operators even more raw data to sift through.
The solution requires a system that actually takes the wheel. Which brings us to the primary player in our sources today, Auger.
Yes, Auger. They are billing themselves as an autonomous operating system for supply chains.
And the pedigree here is serious. Auger was founded by Dave Clark, who is the former CEO of Amazon's worldwide consumer business.
And they just backed it with $100 million from Oak HCFT, so the market is taking this very seriously.
Definitely. Now, Auger represents a shift toward what Sheesh S refers to as Agentic AI.
And it's really crucial to delineate Agentic AI from the generative AI models that have completely dominated the news lately.
Right, because generative AI is, highly effective at drafting communications or summarizing massive documents based on historical patterns.
But Agentic AI is different. It's a continuous decision-making loop tied directly to physical execution.
It doesn't just chat with you, it acts.
Right. It constantly senses a deviation from the operational baseline.
Give me an example of what that looks like in practice.
Okay, let's say it detects a sudden spike in consumer demand for a specific SKU in the Midwest, combined with a weather disruption at a major port.
A classic supply chain nightmare.
Exactly. The AI instantly evaluates the trade-offs across the entire supply chain network simultaneously.
So it's looking at current inventory positions, logistics constraints, cost implications.
And customer service commitments, all at once. And then, crucially, it executes the physical action.
Wow. So it actively rebalances the inventory and adjusts the daily production target at the manufacturer.
And reroutes the inbound freight instantly.
It's essentially like the anti-lock braking system in a modern vehicle, but applied to global logistics.
The ABS analogy is perfect here.
Think about it. Before ABS, if you hit a patch of ice, the human driver had to sense the skid. Remember the training not to slam on the brakes.
Which goes against every human instinct.
Right, and then try to manually pump the pedal to regain traction. Sometimes you got it right, usually you didn't.
Because the latency of human reaction time often resulted in a crash.
But with Agentic AI, the system senses the loss of traction, calculates the physics of the vehicle's momentum, and pumps the brakes on individual wheels hundreds of times a second.
It acts instantly to maintain the physical integrity of the system. It doesn't just show a warning light on your dashboard.
Exactly. And the implications for enterprise supply chains map perfectly to that analogy.
What previously required days of manual coordination across procurement, logistics, and finance departments now collapses into seconds of autonomous execution.
But practically speaking, how does a massive enterprise actually implement this? Because no company is going to rip out a highly customized 20-year-old ERP just to try out a new autonomous operating system.
Oh, absolutely not. The migration risk alone would be catastrophic.
And nobody's risking their job on that.
Yeah.
So how does Auger pull this off?
That is the specific architectural problem the Microsoft Fabric blog post addresses. Auger doesn't replace the ERP, the WMS, or the TMS.
Okay, so it sits where?
It sits directly above them as an orchestration layer. It is built natively as a premier partner on Microsoft Fabric.
And Fabric provides a unified semantic foundation. Let's get into the mechanics of that, because an ancient warehouse management system and a modern transportation management system do not speak the same language.
They really don't. One system might identify a product as SKU_ID using a rigid relational database.
While a newer system tracks it as item underscore code in a graph database, right?
Exactly. The semantic layer in Fabric acts as an active translation engine. It maps those disparate data dictionaries into a single shared schema.
And it does this without physically moving or altering the underlying data in those host systems, which is wild.
Right. It creates a shared vocabulary so the agentic AI can read and write across the entire enterprise stack natively.
But the technical detail here that absolutely changes the game for me is the integration with Microsoft OneLake. The source material emphasizes that Auger uses shortcuts in OneLake.
Yes, the shortcuts. This results in zero ETL overhead.
Zero extract, transform, load overhead. That's huge.
The elimination of that ETL process is arguably the most vital architectural component we're discussing today.
Because traditional AI overlays require copying terabytes of operational data, right?
Yeah, and moving it into a completely separate database for the AI to analyze, by the time that ETL process finishes running overnight, the data is already 12 hours old.
Which makes real-time reaction impossible. So how do these OneLake shortcuts actually bypass that whole process?
Shortcuts function essentially as direct pointers or symbolic links to where the data already lives.
Whether that's in like AWS S3 or Azure Data Lake Storage or even an on-premise server.
Exactly. Auger accesses the governed data in place, utilizing open data formats like Delta Parquet.
But wait, doesn't querying live data across distributed servers create massive query latency? Like if the AI is trying to evaluate a global supply chain disruption in real time.
Waiting for a federated query to ping servers all over the world seems completely counterproductive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the compute engine within Microsoft Fabric comes into play. It separates the storage from the compute.
Okay, so how does that speed things up?
The engine is optimized to process those federated queries across the shortcuts at sub-second speeds. It treats the disparate storage locations as a single logical data lake.
Oh, wow. So Auger can run complex, multivariable simulations on live enterprise data without the lag of data replication.
Exactly. Zero replication, zero lag.
Okay, let's address the massive elephant in the room here. Handing over the execution of millions of dollars in physical goods to an AI autonomous layer. I mean, that requires an unbelievable amount of trust.
It is absolutely the primary friction point for adoption right now. Autonomy without constraints is just automated chaos.
Right. What happens if the system hallucinates or just makes a mathematically optimal choice that destroys customer relationships?
Auger is designed with strict guardrails to prevent exactly that. Every single autonomous action it takes is logged, traceable, and fully auditable.
But auditing happens after the fact. What stops it from making the mistake in the first place?
The critical safety mechanism is that hard constraints are enforced at the very moment of execution.
So like a logistics director could dictate, never authorize expedited air freight that costs over $50,000 without human approval.
Exactly. The human operators define the absolute parameters of the AI's authority.
And if it hits that boundary?
The moment the agentic AI evaluates a scenario and mathematically determines that the only viable solutions fall outside of those predefined guardrails, it stops autonomous execution.
I have to challenge the reality of those guardrails, though. Supply chains are notoriously unpredictable.
Yeah.
What happens during a true black swan event?
Like a major canal blockage or a global pandemic?
Yeah, or a sudden geopolitical conflict. Historical constraints go completely out the window in those scenarios. The AI wouldn't know what to do.
And in those exact scenarios, the system instantly escalates the issue to the appropriate human operator.
But isn't that just going back to the control tower alarm system we talked about earlier?
No, because, and this is the key differentiator, it provides the human with full context. It doesn't just hand over a red flashing alarm.
So what does it hand over?
It hands over a fully researched set of choices, detailing the trade-off analysis for each option, the predicted downstream impacts, and the recommended course of action based on the new reality.
Oh, I see. So the AI transitions instantly from an autonomous executor back to an incredibly powerful advisor.
Precisely. It does the heavy lifting on the analysis, but hands the final call back to the human when the stakes are unprecedented.
Okay, so we understand the underlying architecture. We see how it avoids the ETL trap and how it manages execution constraints. Let's look at what happens when a massive company actually deploys this at scale.
The sources highlight a really big deployment. Meta Reality Labs has selected Auger to synchronize its global operation.
Meta Reality Labs. That means they manage incredibly complex hardware supply chains for devices like their VR headsets and smart glasses.
Yes, you are dealing with highly specialized microchips procured from Asia, extremely tight manufacturing tolerances, and global consumer logistics.
It's massively complex,
And they are utilizing Auger to create a single AI-powered orchestration layer that connects their planning, procurement, manufacturing, and logistics.
What I found really compelling in the SHIS analysis is the UX integration side of this. Because you don't have to send a global supply chain team to like a month-long training boot camp to learn a completely new software ecosystem.
Right, which is usually a huge barrier to adopting new enterprise tech.
Huge. But Auger integrates directly into the tools decision makers already use,
Yeah.
like Microsoft Copilot, Teams, Excel, and Outlook.
The intelligence surfaces where the user already is.
Exactly. So if an operations manager at Meta gets an email about a potential shortage of a specific component, they don't have to open 3 different legacy applications to understand the impact.
They can just interact with Auger through Copilot using natural language.
Yeah, they could literally type into Teams asking, what's the downstream impact of that specific supplier delay?
And Auger runs the scenario modeling in the background and delivers the answer directly in the chat interface.
It integrates all that complex operational reasoning right into the natural rhythm of everyday work.
It's brilliant UX design. And as we transition from this world of slow manual coordination to high-speed precision execution, there's a secondary benefit that radically alters how large companies operate.
We talked earlier about those buffers, right? The excess inventory held to cover human latency.
Right. When you eliminate the latency, you reduce the need for the buffer.
And moving to precision saves working capital, obviously. But it also dramatically impacts sustainability.
In traditional supply chain management, carbon emissions and sustainability metrics are almost universally relegated to end-of-year reporting tools.
Yeah, it functions as a post-mortem exercise.
Right.
A company looks back in January and calculates, well, here's all the carbon we emitted the previous year.
But how does an agentic AI actually change that paradigm? How does it weigh the abstract concept of carbon emissions against hard operational costs in real time?
That's the fascinating part. Auger builds carbon intensity directly into the operational decision-making matrix,
So within the AI's mathematical solver, carbon is treated as a core constraint.
or like a weighted currency, just like dollar cost or delivery speed.
So if a shipment of VR headsets is delayed at a manufacturing facility, the AI evaluates the options.
Right. Option A is to load them onto a cargo plane to hit the original delivery date, which costs more dollars and vastly more carbon.
And option B is to keep them on an ocean freighter, missing the delivery date by 3 days, but saving capital and massive amounts of emissions.
The AI runs that exact calculation, but it evaluates it against the enterprise's preset priorities.
So if the company has configured the system to heavily penalize carbon-intensive actions unless, say, a critical customer SLA is at risk,
The AI will automatically select the ocean freight option. It shifts sustainability from a passive, backward-looking reporting requirement into an active, real-time operational constraint.
by reducing excess manufacturing capacity and minimizing reactive expedited air freight, the aggregate environmental impact is profound.
It really is.
Yeah.
And looking at all these pieces together, the semantic architecture, the zero ETL data access, the shift from descriptive dashboards to autonomous physical execution, it requires a profound shift in the role of the human professional.
Absolutely. If your career is in operations, logistics, or complex enterprise management, your day-to-day functionality is going to evolve.
The human role is elevating away from manual coordination, data reconciliation, and reactive firefighting,
You are no longer the person running the SQL query to figure out where the inventory is.
or organizing the proverbial group dinner via text message.
Exactly. The professional transitions into an architect of the system's behavior.
Your value is in defining the enterprise strategy, setting those crucial operational constraints we talked about, determining the mathematical weight of carbon versus capital.
And overseeing the ultimate outcomes generated by the autonomous layer.
I want to leave you with a thought experiment based on the trajectory of this technology. It isn't explicitly detailed in the Microsoft blog or the Auger announcements, but it builds naturally on everything we've discussed.
Let's hear it.
If you follow the logic of agentic AI collapsing coordination time from weeks down to seconds within a single massive company like Meta, what happens when the entire ecosystem adopts this?
Oh, wow. The natural progression is multi-enterprise autonomous coordination.
Yes. Imagine a world where AI agents are negotiating directly with other AI agents across the global supply chain.
So an agentic AI at a major retailer automatically detects a demand spike.
Right. It instantly negotiates pricing and volume with an AI at a contract manufacturer.
And simultaneously, that manufacturer's AI is negotiating bulk shipping rates with an AI at a global freight provider.
Exactly. All these complex, multivariable B2B transactions happening concurrently, evaluating cost, carbon, and transit time, all executed in fractions of a second.
Completely removing human beings from routine B2B negotiations entirely.
It redefines the foundational concept of market efficiency. When the friction of human coordination is removed from those transactions, the velocity of global commerce changes entirely.
And the underlying architecture we've explored today, the unified semantic layers, the real-time data access without ETL, the hard execution constraints, it makes that future highly probable.
It fundamentally changes how we think about the physical economy. So the next time you're stuck in a group text trying to coordinate a simple Thursday dinner reservation, balancing everyone's schedules and dietary restrictions.
Just remember, somewhere out there, an agentic AI is evaluating thousands of variables and seamlessly rerouting a massive cargo ship in 3 seconds flat.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you and keep exploring.